It's Wednesday, and we're going to try this again. It's time for EoP. I'm Freddie Burns.
And I'm Big Al.
And I messed it up.
That's a nice name for you. Messed it up. That's a pretty good first and last name. Well, we had a couple technical difficulties there, but we got a great show for everyone tonight. Ton of Eagles talk and drama. We're going to get into the offensive coordinators we like, Vic Fangio, the Eagles press conference, that Joe Santa Cluido article that ironically is 4 years to the day was of the Carson Wentz, and a very similar hit piece, if you will. We'll get into the Sixers. Joel Embiid, 70-point game, sets a franchise record, and is really putting up statistics that are Wilt Chamberlain-esque. Maybe the greatest season of any NBA player ever. Flyers dropped 3 in a row. Are they coming back down to earth here? And then the Phillies had a signing today, Atlanta Braves. What's his name again, Joe?
It is Colby Allard.
Colby Allard, I think, he has a 6.42 ERA from the Braves, as well as we say goodbye to Rhys Hoskins, who was a big part of this team and had some magical moments, so we'll say goodbye to him. But first, let's kick it off with the Eagles and their drama press conference today. We'll start with you, Al. What was your reaction?
Boring. Snooze fest. Listen, I get the media guys. They can't go in like guns a-blazing because, they got to keep they can lose their press. Speaking of Joe Santa Cluido, there's a guy, who was part of the press corps at one point until that article came out and then somehow was taken away. So you got to be careful a little bit. But, you heard the question come out. What went wrong? The question should have been asked, why did it go wrong? And that still remains one of my biggest head scratchers to this moment. As we sit here and we're going to dive into the OC talk and the DC talk and who's going to take over for Brian Johnson and Sean Desai / Matt Patricia. Where did it go wrong? Because like I said, I don't want to say they go fire Nick Sirianni and all that stuff. But that was a major collapse. And
it's exactly what you said last week. Me and Fred were on the side of keeping Nick, and you were the lone guy saying fire him. So don't go twisting it around now, acting like you were on board.
Well, let me say this: I don't think you should be firing a guy after 3 years, especially the success he had.
What? But, you just said it last week.
Hold on.
That's exactly what you said.
Just stop and listen. But if I said, the caveat is, if you lost the locker room, if it was a total collapse on management, and he was even asked during this press conference, hey, like Daniel's saying, what do you do here, Nick Sirianni? Like somebody literally asked him, so if you're not, sitting in on the defensive meetings and you're not doing the offensive play calling, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's funny.
And that it was funny but true, and it goes, like I said, again, I don't want to see a guy lose his job, but if it's a total collapse because he is not the leader that we thought he was, that's an issue, and I don't know if any offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator both are going to make a difference if it's going to continue to fall on him. And I will guarantee you, because the Eagles tend to hedge their bets. Vic Fangio is all but, the new defensive coordinator. You'll notice that one, if not both of them, had head coaching experience because they're going to hedge their bets, just like they did with Doug Peterson and Schwartz. And now they're going to have somebody. It's going to be kind of like what the Bucs did recently with their head coach. They're going to have somebody waiting in their wings that if this goes sour fast, they're going to pull the trigger. You watch.
The Eagles did win a Super Bowl that way. Joe, what was your first reaction?
First, I want to say to what Al just said, there was no caveat. There was no, he just straight up said that he wanted Nick to be fired. So I just want that to be on the record. My first impression of it was exactly what we thought. It was going to be some hard-nosed hitting questions. We probably weren't going to get the answers that we wanted. There were some questions, like Al said, about Nick being called out, what exactly do you do? And it was the right question. I wish that they went in a little bit more of a, hey, Nick, were you told to fire the coordinators on both sides of the ball, or you're going to lose your job. I know that they kind of asked him that in a roundabout way with saying like, hey, when you go into this meeting, are you pitching yourself again? And he answered that in a roundabout way. I honestly thought that the press conference was going to be a lot longer. I thought that they were going to be able to, answer a lot more in depth. That's just not the way it went. They were 25 minutes delayed getting to the presser, which was, as somebody who was on waiting at 2:30, I'm in the middle of work. I got kids. I got stuff to do. Like, these things should be started on time. I understand things come up. If it was the Vic Fangio stuff that delayed it and the possible signing of them, I get it. You have to push some things aside. I do. But it is kind of disrespectful to the media that's there. They have jobs to do. The people who are watching, even though we're fans, like, we have this as a job as well. So we're, putting our time in their hands as well. I don't know. It was kind of a fluff piece. I know that they had to go out there and kind of answer some questions. I think, to what Al said, it was a snooze fest. Like, it wasn't really anything more than what we kind of expected it to be.
My initial reaction is I was very, very disappointed with that press conference, and more towards the media members than Nick and Howie. And I thought, to the fluff part you're saying, Joe, the questions were terrible. They were like, how did you feel about getting rid of Brian Johnson? I'm paraphrasing. Or how did
Right.
What the hell? Who cares? We don't care about that. Like, what about asking questions like, hey, for 6 weeks, you guys did not know how to identify a blitz. What adjustments did you make during the seasons that didn't work? And is the new person going to have a focus on adjusting to the blitz? Like, let's get to the bottom of what some of these issues were. Not just all this like roundabout questioning. There was no substance to it. It really frustrated me. I was just like, eh. And then when Howie kind of like tried to save Nick, because you could tell Nick was starting to ramble because he didn't know answers. Like, let me get some questions so I can answer too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, come on, Howie. Like just let it go. Like, we're going after Nick here. Like, we know your spiel by now. We know you're gonna spin everything, and he says the right thing. So, I was very disappointed with it. A few things that I would like to ask you guys about. It got thrown around a couple of times. You alluded to it, Al. The new offensive coordinator and bringing in fresh ideas and what that meant. They didn't press on that at all. But how did you feel about that, Joe? The word fresh ideas, I feel like Nick said it 10 times. It probably was 4. Your thoughts on that?
I don't really buy too much into it, because Nick has gone on the record how many times saying this is his offense and it's going to be run the way he wants it to be run. I know he was talking about fresh ideas. I know but he was wording it in a way where it was like, I'm going to appease you in what you want to hear right now, but I'm also going to word it in a way to make it concrete that this is my offense. Like, it didn't seem like there was like, I know that he was giving us lip service and, making it sound like he was going to be, very arms wide open to all these other fresh ideas. But I kind of took away that, like, no, like, this is going to be his way, and they're going to bring in another guy who is just going to fall in line with it. I don't know exactly where that is going to bring this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We'll get into the defensive side of the ball. There are some guys out there, some young talent who they could bring in to, kind of spruce up this offense. I just don't know if that's really the way that they want to go with this.
Interesting that a lot of people took it the other way. I kind of lead in the middle. A lot of people took it that, and Al, I think you just said it. What is his job? What is his job going to be? He said, I'm going to be the head coach. But to your point, he's like 95% this or 5%. He left himself the out of not it being just the offensive coordinator. Al, talk about that then, because I think you're on the other side of what Joe's saying here, because you took away that, like, well, what are you doing if you're not the offensive guy?
Well, he even talked about, like, maybe I'll sit in some defensive, meetings this season. What were you doing? You're like, I get it. You're a head coach. You can't do everything, but you should have your pulse. You should know what's going on. And the fact that you bring up the term fresh ideas, I mean, you can't get less fresh than the ideas they had. I've seen like lower tier high school play calling that look better than the Philadelphia Eagles, especially the last half of the year. So fresh is the lead. Like it needs to be not just fresh, but like innovative. Like that's why, like with the when we talk about the OC, I'm going to be looking at somebody who I think will be innovative, but probably kind of fit the want of what the Eagles would be looking for. But yeah, I mean, again, Doug Peterson, he looked like he when he did, at least you knew he was very involved in the offense. Like they always talked about, he scripted the first 10 or 15 plays of every game. Him and whoever the OC was at the time.
He got that from Andy Reid.
Yeah, Andy Reid did it too. I mean, like that's my thing. So if he just said, "All right, Brian, you got this. All right, cool. Sean, you got that. I'm gonna go make a cool speech to the crowd, to the group, and we'll run it back." Like that's what that sounds like he said he did.
Well, they talked about in training camp. I remember back in training camp, and I read a few articles that I think Nick was more hands-on than we know this year, which was a detriment to him being the head coach. There were times he would have to stop practice on both the offensive and defensive side and say, "Hey, you don't got the right personnel in here." So he was almost coaching the coaches. So when you hire an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, your intent is not to coach the coaches. Your intent is to hire guys that can coach, and then you can put your input in and smatter and here and there, not actually be the offensive coordinator for the offensive coordinator. There was times I think Howie stopped practice one time in training camp and recognized they didn't have the right personnel on. So I think maybe the Eagles are saying, "Hey, look, maybe I can this year actually be a head coach," because the year before I could kind of let Gannon and Sirianni do their thing and I just had input. This year I was stuck. Maybe that's the route they went.
Well, let me ask this. Let me ask this. The fresh new ideas. Now, is this somebody coming in to overlook the playbook and come up with some fresh new plays? Because if not, I mean, if it's the same playbook, I mean, if it's Nick's offense, again, I can't believe I'm saying that many times, but it's the same playbook. And what the play caller has to do is see the rhythm of the offense and the defense that's coming at them, and know in what order, what type of play to run next. But if it's the same playbook and it's going to be the same old guy.
He basically said it's going to be a different playbook, though. It's going to be new.
Okay, that's my question is when he says fresh new, is it coming in and switching up the plays?
I think so, to an extent. The matter is how much, and that's when he gave the percentages. I'm not going to tell you because he made it a point to say our offense, because when they asked the question, they went to the other person's offense, and he was quick to say, whoa, it's our offense, collaboration together. And he did put a focus on that. He's going to make sure the culture's going the right way. And I don't necessarily know that's a terrible thing. Everyone kind of was ripping him for it, but you see Pete Carroll has had a lot of success that way. I know most offensive coaches are calling the plays, but, Pete Carroll hires good coordinators and he keeps the culture going. So maybe it's a good thing. But why
not just keep Brian Johnson then? Because we've heard how Brian's offense was kind of left out of everything with Nick and everything. So why not just use Brian Johnson and his type of play expertise to have that fresh look in the playbook? Like Nick even said when on the defensive side of the ball that it was kind of unfair to Matt Patricia when he made the switch because Matt Patricia couldn't run the type of defense that he runs. So why isn't it the same thing when it comes to Brian Johnson and Nick's offense? Why couldn't Brian Johnson be the fresh look?
I don't know. Maybe Brian wasn't prepared the way he thought he would be. Same reason he made the switch over there with Patricia. That was a bad move for him, actually, because that made it worse. But we don't know. Obviously, they did not. They collectively were trying to come up with ideas to stop the blitz. And whatever those ideas were, I didn't see any change, though. That's my frustration. Like, it's not like we saw something different. So I guess we'll see with the new guy. And, maybe we'll jump into that first. Let's get into the offensive coordinators who we would like to see here. or we think will be here. Al, you have a point before we jump there?
Real quick, I'll remind you guys that this is brought to you by phillysportstrips.com. That's right, phillysportstrips.com has all the trips lined up for you so you can take your fandom on the road with everybody else and have a great time. They take care of everything from soup to nuts, you name it, the travel plans, the food, the party atmosphere. Let's look at the stadium series. Go watch the Flyers take on the Devils in East Rutherford, New Jersey, February 17th. What a great time to go. Guys, these things sell out. Spring training's already sold out. They have a couple other trips here. You got the 13th to the 18th, as well as 15th to the 20th to head down to Clearwater and watch the Phillies in beautiful Florida. And if you want to kind of double dip, you can do a Phillies/Flyers trip in Tampa this coming March 7th through the 10th. So check it out. Go to phillysportstrips.com.
Before we jump into the OCs, Anthony, thanks for checking in. Everyone, thanks for listening. Please hit that like button and subscribe. Share out if you can. We really appreciate the support. Every show here on the Edge of Philly Sports Network. Personally, Jeff, Howie, Nick thinks Eagles fans are really stupid. Have no clue. Howie and Nick is stuck in the middle. What a slap in the face for Eagles fans. Howie, Nick keep saying we need to be aggressive, and there are aggressive coaches with tons of heart and the same OC, but instead they closed Nick Fangio or Jim Schwartz. And you're real. I thought you were a Packers fan. You're pretty passionate about it, slap in the face to all of us, but you're a Packers guy. I don't know that they said that today. They didn't give the same spiel, but I don't know. Sometimes they say the same old stuff. I get that, but I think they do know that the fans are pretty smart. Jumping into the offensive coordinators, if you guys don't mind, I'll kick this one off.
Absolutely.
I got a guy that, first I was like, I was listening to Dives and Rob and Ryan the other night, and I kind of felt the same way. Like it's, and you probably feel the same way. It's like you want to go with the new exciting offense versus the experienced guy. Like it's like, what do you pick? Because you don't want the old guy that's just going to be stuck in 10, 15 years ago, but then you don't want the new guy like Ryan Johnson that's going to fall flat on his face. So that brought me to Gerard Johnson of the Houston Texans, quarterback coach, 35 years old. As I looked into this guy, C.J. Stroud obviously had a tremendous year. But if you went off just that, Jalen Hurts had a tremendous year last year, and that's kind of what Brian Johnson was, the quarterback coach behind the quarterback that had so much success. But if you go through his path, he's bounced around. He's been in the league, about 7 years now, 2017. He came in with the 49ers and was with Bobby Slowick under that Kyle Shanahan offense. So he got a little taste of the Kyle Shanahan tree is one thing. Then he goes to the Colts, runs game with Nick Sirianni, Frank Wright, has that vet. He was side by side with Sirianni for a lot of the stuff. So they have familiarity with each other and the way Sirianni wants to run things. Then also he's an assistant coach for the Vikings in 2022. In 2022, the Vikings were 8th in points, 7th in yards, and 6th in passing yards. The head coach of the Vikings is Kevin McConnell, who studied under Sean McVay. So now you get a wrinkle of these fresh ideas from McVay and Kyle Shanahan, all while coming to be the quarterback's coach under Bobby Slowick, who also was under Kyle Shanahan. And obviously Slowick thought highly enough of Gerard Johnson to bring him in to be the quarterback's coach over there with the Texans. So my only concern with this hire would be yet another guy that has no experience calling plays and a head coach that struggled to call plays. So my first guy anyhow is Jared Johnson. Joe, who do you got?
I'm gonna go. I have 4 written down. I want to start with probably the one that you guys don't. I'm gonna go with Joe Brady, and the reason is because we've seen him have success at LSU. He then came on with Matt Rule to the Panthers, and he did not have a really great opportunity there. We saw what happened with Matt Rule. He was out quickly. Joe Brady kind of fell, under the bus or got ran under the bus because of Matt Rule. And then he goes to Buffalo, and, he shows what he brought to the table at LSU. And I think he's young. I think he's exciting. He has experience with the offense, especially at LSU. I think that this is a young, intriguing candidate for the Eagles, and they're only going to get younger. I mean, so he's going to have chemistry with these young guys coming in. It just worries me with the mixing with Nick Sirianni and the offense. I mean, I think that's going to be my argument with almost everybody that I'm going to talk about. Is I don't know if they're going to mix and mesh well. But Joe Brady would be my first young guy who I would think about interviewing for the OC position.
Joe Brady, that's a good one. Taking over for that since he took over for the Bills, that's when they kind of went on their run.
Yeah.
Al, who's one that you have?
One that's been talked about a lot lately, and I'm going to go with Cliff Kingsbury, and I'll tell you why. Here's a guy who worked with a similar style quarterback in Kyler Murray, mobile quarterback, good arm. The one thing he'll have that he would like to have that he didn't have with Kyler Murray is a guy who actually studies the game and who wants to understand the game and grow as a better player. I think he brings that innovation. I think you kind of find that even mix. He's been it. He's had the career. He's had the success. But at the same time, he is still fresh. He's still young. Like he's kind of in that quasi, right in that middle, that sweet spot that I think the Eagles would look for in a guy like that. I think he's working at USC now. He's not even like an OC or anything. He's like an analyst or
USC.
Something like that. But he has, and I said they're going to be probably looking for guys that had some HC background, at least one way or the other. So if they had to pull the safety valve on Nick Sirianni, Cliff Kingsbury did HC for the Arizona Cardinals at one time, had success when Kyler first got here. So given the fact that you have a guy who wants to get better, you have a guy who is very innovative and has the pedigree already. I think Cliff Kingsbury could have don't call it a comeback, but come back to the NFL in an OC situation.
And he like Nick Sirianni doesn't like to run motion, so that fits. But he has an air raid type offense, and he likes to run the ball. Al, they ran the ball. And I know they used the mobile quarterback, which we're going to use too. They ran the ball in Arizona. It wasn't the greatest. I mean, he eventually got fired, but it's an intriguing name. A lot of people don't like him because of the motion thing. But I don't know.
I think he got fired more because of they signed that ridiculous contract to Kyler Murray, and they were stuck with Kyler, and somebody had to go, and it wasn't going to be Kyler. So I think he was kind of the odd man out in that situation as well.
Anthony checking in. I am a Packers fan. I just like hanging out with you guys. We love hanging out with you too. Sorry, I didn't mean to come off like rude when I said that. It seemed like you were real passionate about it, and I'm like, wow, you
call him angry ant for a reason.
You almost sound like an Eagles fan. That's what I was. That's all I meant.
He did call us idiots, so.
Grow again. Well, we're idiots sometimes, aren't we?
In fact, I think I called Hallie and Nick idiots in our group text earlier, so we're good.
Eagles hire Al Groh again. Oh yeah. Well, he was a great wide receiver coach. I will give him that. Al Groh when he was here under Doug. So, I guess we'll go through one more each. Another guy I'm intrigued about. I'm so torn which way to go here. I want to go Eric Bieniemy. I really want to, but I don't know that the Andy Reid West Coast is going to mesh at all with Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni was fired by Andy Reid the minute he got to Kansas City. I'm going to go with Zach Robinson of the Rams. He's been with McVay for 5 years. The Rams, motion-wise, would bring an element that we have not seen here. It doesn't sound like he would mesh with Sirianni, but it does fit the bill for new ideas, fresh ideas. Motion. The Rams ran motion 41.4% of the time compared to the Eagles 10.9%. So that's a 30-point jump right there. And then red zone offense, the Rams scored or with the highest rate at 96.5%, something crazy. I got those stats from Dive. Shout out to him for those. It's going to be interesting because Zach Robinson, again, can he call plays? Can it fit? But I think it would be a totally new way of looking at the offense and maybe a step back from what Sirianni likes. So that's my guy then. I'll go Zach Robinson. Joe, how about you?
I'm going to go with it might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going with Brian Griese, the quarterback's coach for the Niners.
Like it. Love it.
He's a former player. He won a Super Bowl behind John Elway. So I mean, he was already in the presence of greatness. You have to look at it. He's been with the Niners since 2022, 2 seasons. Who else has been with the Niners for 2 seasons? Brock Purdy. Last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, and look where they have been the past 2 seasons, back-to-back NFC championships. And you also have Brian Griese, who is around an offense of Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Debo, George Kittle. I think, just his overall knowledge of football, his IQ, and just the room that he has been in the past 2 seasons with the Niners defense is one of the most intriguing parts about Brian Griese. He would be another one, would be at the top of my list for an interview.
That is a great one. I love that one, Joe.
Yeah.
Good one. Al, what's your final one?
I mean, Eric Bieniemy makes sense in this, and I see where you're going with it, Fred, because the Andy Reid tree, we all know they like to pick from that tree still. I don't think they really worry about the offense meshing with Nick Sirianni. They just want an offense that'll work. Eric Bieniemy has the clout, and Eric Bieniemy has the knowledge, and I think he would be a good fit. I can see the Eagles taking him, but believe it or not, I wasn't a big fan of this thought. I kind of switched a bit, but Kellen Moore, and I'll tell you why. He does have a very innovative offense, and he knows the NFC East very well. Let's be honest. He coached in Dallas. He had success in Dallas. He was over with the Chargers. They fell apart. Justin Herbert, the head coach, and he kind of was odd man out with it too. But I think Kellen Moore could be, if you're looking for that young up-and-coming guy who has something different, who's going to throw wrinkles at things. It's all we talked about is how everything was vanilla. I mean, he's the opposite of vanilla. So if you're looking for young, up-and-coming, but has a little experience, Kellen Moore could be that guy.
The only problem with that is a coach cannot make a lateral move. He would have to be fired.
He was fired.
First.
He was fired.
Oh, he was fired.
He was fired from the Chargers.
Okay,
he was
that's my bad.
I think the whole staff was let go when they.
That's my bad. I did not know he was fired.
It was going to be because Jim Harbaugh got hired. He's going in there and he's put all his own people in there. Wait,
Harbaugh got hired by the Chargers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when the hell did this happen?
About 7:00-ish, somewhere at that time.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. One name who I wasn't going to bring up for the new OC, but could possibly be brought back in some type of scenario, and it's not Frank Reich, it's Deuce Staley. I mean, can you see him coming back? Because
he just signed he's a running backs coach for why can't I remember? He just signed it.
Okay.
Just recently. Hold on, I'll tell you right now. Go ahead, keep going, guys.
No, you're good. I've been out of the know for the past 2 hours, so you just schooled me on my last 2 thoughts.
I was unaware of Deuce as well, but on your other names thing, the few I have written down here, Frank Reich, like you just
Browns.
said.
The Browns hired him. Sorry,
Browns. Yes. Okay.
He's a running back.
That's a good spot for him.
He's a running back coach, but will interview as an offensive coordinator. Just feels like he never can get over that poor hump. Poor Deuce Staley.
Yeah.
Jim Bob Cooter's a name that's been bounced around.
No, I'm not a fan.
Clint
Sorry.
Kubiak. I'm just saying other names that are out there.
Yeah.
Frank Reich, Jim Bob Cooter, Eric Bieniemy, I mentioned, Clint Kubiak. So other names out there. It'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do. It looks like, and we'll get into. Let's just go into this briefly. Maybe we'll go a deeper dive next week when it's official. But it sounds like the Eagles are going to hire Vic Fangio, who is the orchestrator of the scheme they've been trying to run for the last 2 years. Jonathan Gannon ran this scheme as well as Sean Desai, but they're going to bring in the head honcho, Vic Fangio. He's agreed to part ways with the Miami Dolphins. Early thoughts on Vic Fangio. Start with you, Joe.
First off, I didn't know that he had family close to Pennsylvania, and that's number one, why he kind of signed on to be a consultant with the Eagles, but also why he wants to come back to, this area with the Eagles. Okay, yeah. I didn't know that his family was that local. I honestly think this is real cut and dry. They've been trying to get this guy in. It took a year to get it. It was kind of Jonathan Gannon who screwed the pooch when it came to that. So no fault to his own. Vic moved on for a year to the Dolphins, and now it all kind of, all the puzzle pieces are coming together. I'm very on board for this. He is already a culture guy within the building. Everyone respects him a lot. We know, the type of defense he runs. We know it's the defense or the type of defense that the Eagles have been trying to, I guess master, I guess you can say, even though this year was a big letdown, especially the last half of the season. I think it's probably the hire that they need to do. And I think it's also, and I guess this can go for the offensive side of the ball too, is you almost and I heard this mentioned a few times before. You kind of have to have in the back of your mind, like, we want to get somebody in here that can be with the team for X amount of years, not some young hotshot who's going to come in, do great, and then be up for a head coaching position the following year, and then it's back to the drawing board. And I think Vic Fangio is a great, testitute to that he will be with the Eagles for X amount of time, however long they choose. And I think that it's a great way to build this defense for years to come.
Yeah, very similar to Jim Johnson there, not the scheme wise, but to your point of bringing in like Andy Reid did. Let me get an older guy in here that's not going to be a head coach elsewhere. He's going to be locked in as your defensive coordinator. Al, early thoughts on Vic Fangio?
I mean, listen, I was the one who was screaming for him before, and it seemed like that was the guy they wanted from the get. Like before, when Jonathan Gannon was gone, it just seemed all but, they signed him on for that 2 weeks during the Super Bowl run last year, between championship game and the Super Bowl, they kind of come in as a consultant. So this seemed like to be the guy that they wanted the whole time. So was it just perfect that, he wanted, the Dolphins didn't pan out, and he's like, you know what, I just want to get closer to my family. Let me go. They both, him and the Dolphins, decided to separate ways. I'm still not sure if I want, I might be changing, talking about flip-flopping tonight. I guess that'll be my theme of the night. I'm just not sure if I want him to be now. Like, I was screaming at the top of the heavens for him a year ago to come in here and be our defensive coordinator. But, I mean, we've been seeing too much Vic Fangio style stuff, and it's just not panning out. And I know we're going to talk about defensive coordinator, so maybe I'll just do my little bit of spoiler here. I wonder, and according to his best friend Snoop Dogg, Pete Carroll is talked about, like he wants to coach still. Now Snoop Dogg leaked
they all do.
That Snoop Dogg said he wanted the Chargers job, but of course that's off the table now. But if he would be if he would be a DC. And I take him in a heartbeat here in
but
Philly.
Didn't he already accept some other type of role within the Seahawks organization?
It's just some executive style role. I'm not exactly sure what the title is, but doesn't mean he can't quit that. It's a different job. Like
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't think it's under contract or anything. So he was kind of forced out. Like, they said, we're going to be moving on with that, but we want to keep you in the organization. And maybe he's like, even though he's 75 years old, he's like, I don't want to. I want to keep coaching now. What you just said right there was going to be what I literally just brought up. That looks are deceiving. That man does not look like he is 75 years old. He's running all up and down the sideline. He's chomping at the gum a mile a minute. He does not look 75. I mean, hey, Pete, like, you did great. USC, Seattle. Just accept your cushy, front office job and, call it a day.
Well, my take on Vic is you're going to get a guy that, does pre and post snap. Like, they're going to try to disguise stuff, which is a good thing. You're not going to get the guy that's blitzing like Jim Johnson, but there will be pressure from the front four, similar to Gannon, hopefully. I like to see the 3-4 looks where you're going to get Jordan Davis as a nose guard, which is his natural position. See how that goes. And in this defense, you need linebackers to play well. Like, you have to have good linebackers. So the philosophy with the Eagles not having good linebackers kind of is out the window. This scheme don't work without good linebackers. So
wait, did you not hear the press conference earlier? Because apparently Zach Cunningham had a great season, and the Kobe Dean they are still very high on.
And their linebackers have been great over the last 6 years. I mean, I don't know what you. Yeah, I mean, we must have missed something on that one.
What I saw earlier, I saw that they spent last year like $6.3 million on the linebacker position, and it ranked 32 in the NFL. So Hallie wants to come out and say it's a misconception. Yeah, my tookus. Stop it.
Yeah.
Matty B, check it in and check him out on Tuesday nights on Edge of Philly Sports, talking sports
Monday
with Matty B. I'm sure this is going to be a very positive and exciting comment. Has anyone thought about this? What happens when this thing implodes next year and they fire Sirianni, his whole staff? The same thing that's been happening our entire
I don't understand why we're putting his comments on the show.
Matty B. Well, I put everyone's comments on the show. Everyone's open to say anything. 3 years, 3 new OC, DC, Clown City. It'll be the same as things been happening our whole life outside of the Andy Reid era, Matty B. I get your frustrations, but we'll see what happens.
And here's my thing. The positives of Vic Fangio. Fred, you just brought one of them up. Is his style, his pre-snap movement, and the linebacker. But you look at it here. His defense, the Dolphins. Let me give you some numbers here. His Dolphins defense was ranked 9th overall, total defense, which. You kind of go back. They kind of struggled against good teams, kind of like we talked about Dallas. When it came to good teams, they struggled or putting teams away. But it was more from an offensive standpoint, kind of coming up short in my eyes. But they ranked 15th in passing defense, but 7th in run defense overall. So I'm not off on the Vic Fangio thing. The reason I kind of like him more than anything is I think he's a guy who will push back a little bit against the norm. Like he will push back in the sense that he won't just do whatever they say. He won't roll over. I think you had 2 young guys here who are afraid of losing their jobs, who are walking on, say, eggshells type situation.
Gannon wasn't, though. Gannon was successful.
No, I'm talking about this last year. Okay, these 2 guys, they were young. Sean's
both coordinators. Got
you. Yeah, both coordinators. You didn't have that grizzled vet. You know what I mean? Who's like, I don't care, whatever. I'm running my way. This is how we do it. Like you didn't have that. That's why I would be open to a Pete Carroll, Vic Fangio, even a Wink Martindale to a point. I just don't know if that would fit with our current team situation.
Well, I think it is Vic Fangio. Like it's pretty much.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that kind of makes me happy about it is. He was in the building for a Super Bowl season. He was working closely with Jonathan Gannon. He does have a similar defense to it. Why wouldn't we want to run that back? We would have if he was available to be hired, last off season. So I mean, they're now getting their guy. It just took a season.
Well, if you want to get tickets to any upcoming games that are left for your Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies around the pike, I got the spot for you. It's Sherry's Ticket Town. Go to www.sherrystickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. Save 10% with the promo code EoP10. Sports, concerts, theaters, anything, you name it. The price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Don't forget that promo code EoP10. Go to www.sherrystickets.com today. Well, let's move on for the coordinator. We got about 9:20 right now. Let's jump into this article that popped out by Joe Santaquita. I always pronounce his name wrong, and I apologize. And
Santaquita.
And normally I would say this is a hit piece. I'm not even entertaining this. But when he dropped this thing about Carson Wentz, 4 years to the day of this article, the whole city was up in arms. He had death threats, trash, or like feces put on his front door. Like craziness happened to this guy's house. And he ended up being almost right about a lot of the stuff he said. He just didn't confirm his sources the way he should have, was the only issue. And it ended up a lot of the stuff he was saying came to light about Wentz. So did you guys, what was your initial reaction to this article? Or is it just another hit piece, or do you think there's some validity to it? I'm going to bring up some quotes as we go. Joe, you first.
First thing I'm going to say is I don't think it's a coincidence at all that it is to the day of the Wentz article. I think he timed that out perfectly, especially because it is a quite similar article to what the Wentz piece was. If I'm being totally honest about it, I think that there's some validity to it. I think that there could be some non-truths to it. I don't really, at this point, I'm not going to just going to go and judge it, off first glance, because we have been proven wrong in the past. Joe Santaquita excuse me if I'm butchering your name, he has kind of been vindicated since 4 years ago's article. So I mean, who knows? Like, I mean, this stuff really could be going on. And I mean, of course, you want to fact check, get your sources right, everything like that. But like me as the reader, I mean, who am I to tell him that that his piece is a hit piece when the OG 4 years ago turned out to be almost completely right. So I mean, I honestly think like it's just going to be one of those time will tell type things.
Al, your thoughts?
Yeah, I got to go with Joe on this one and agree with him. Like, you don't. I'll be honest with you. When we first got it, we were just, we were open minded to it, but we thought, hey, man, this guy, he's like kind of like I was on a tour, because actually we were in contact with him to have him call into our show when that original story dropped, and he said he would have, but because of what you said, Fred, all the death threats and all that stuff, he was starting to lie low because
there's too much heat.
He was making too much. He was making the rounds. He was on WIP. He was on NBC Sports. He was this. See, I think what got him kind of in trouble at that time is the old saying is when you make yourself the story, you kind of hurt yourself. You hurt your credibility a little bit. And like I said earlier, that's why some of these guys didn't ask the hard-hitting questions today. Some of them will push harder. Some of the more guys have been around there will push harder, but they won't push to the point where they could lose their credentials or they could, it's important to them. And I get it. But, it's again, I had to go with that wait and see mentality because, like Joe said, at first I'm like, oh, this guy's just going too much to it. It was a hit. I was that guy. I'm like, this is a hit piece. He just had a vendetta against. It felt like that, at least. It felt like he had a vendetta because that was the first we ever heard about it. And it wasn't, it really put Carson in a bad light. So I was at first, went, okay, this guy just does not like him.
Well, few of the quotes, and Al, did you delete the banners by chance, by accident here? I had them all up, but anyhow, so there was a couple quotes here I wanted to bring up.
Were they on the first stream?
Nah, they were on here when we started, but now they're
gone. Right. Yeah, they should have been here.
But all good. But But one of the sources the team described Hurts as a good dude who sometimes does not realize the times he's acting like a prima donna. Bleep. Sounds very similar to Carson Wentz. I want to kind of defend Hurts here. I don't think he's that type of dude. I think maybe he's reserved. He came off a Super Bowl year, got paid a lot of contract stuff going on, and they're clear in the article that he's not Carson Wentz per se. But that particular quote kind of pissed me off because Hurts doesn't strike me as that guy. Does he to you?
Not really. You? No, not really. I mean, I definitely think he's reserved, but I don't think he is unapproachable or, a me guy, to whatever extent that is. I think that, like, one of my things is, like, I think he's always been like this. I think he was like this in high school. I think he was like this in college, whatever team he was on. I think he's like this in the pros. I think he's just a different breed. I just think he's very, I don't want to say stoic like everyone else is saying, but I think he's very straight and to the point, very straight and narrow.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. Listen, when you're winning, it's okay. Look at him. He don't blink. He's like a statue out there because he's not cheering because he's not happy until they win it all. But then when things get bad, he's unapproachable. He's cold or whatever the problems that they're having with him. To me, that's not an issue. How many times have we heard about like great pitchers in baseball? Just, when you can't talk to them on game day. They are in the zone. Well, maybe he's in the zone. Maybe that's what it is. He is just hyper-focused. Does that make you a bad guy? Not in my eyes. And he hasn't shown – I mean, one of the things what we all talked about in 2021, before we really knew if he had the arm strength to make the throws or he had the football IQ, we weren't sure if he had able to read a defense. The one thing that everybody could agree upon is he had the leadership intangibles. He was able to talk to players, rally players, and lead by example. So because they're losing, did that change, or did it just the outlook, did it just look different because of that?
Do you think the players are souring on him or not going to his defense? So is there a locker room issue? And I want to bring up a play here real quick that I want to show you guys. And it was the tush push. And watch what happens and watch what the players do. Jumps the line. Max Hurts. See it again.
Yeah,
that guy jumped across the line, him in the head. If any other teammate would have attacked him, correct? Or am I not reading that right?
So when this happened, I'll tell you this. I was watching it with somebody.
Are we having difficulties with the screen?
It didn't show right away, but it did at the end there. But I know what you're talking about. It's when the Giants were trying to do to sneak the tush push and jump the line to stop Jalen Hurts. They jumped off sides and banged Jalen Hurts, and nobody came to his defense. And a lot of people ran to that right away, saying that the Eagles, the players didn't care. No, sometimes that's a discipline thing. Because what happens if Jason Kelce gets in his face, or if Jordan Mailata throws him to the ground? What happens? The flag's called. Then everything they just gained from that penalty goes away. You know what I mean? So I don't read into that one play being okay, they don't like him anymore. Now this team looked like they quit. I mean, that Tampa Bay game, that playoff game, this team looked like they had their bags packed and nobody wanted to be there. At least most of them, I should say, not nobody, but most of them. So there was some quit. Now, was it because of Jalen Hurts? But that one play in space to me does not does not sign up like this. They don't like him.
There was another play, which I'm not going to share because obviously it's slowing the feed down or something. But where against the Bucs, where he clearly can make a block for, I think it was Kenny Gainwell, and he just shies away. Where I think Hurts in years past would have made that block. Is it the injury? Is it maybe it's in his head? I don't know. But Al or Joe, did you see that play on Monday Night Football where he had the block? It would have freed Gainwell to go, and he just did this fake thing.
I think when it comes to that type of stuff, I think he has been timid all season. I know that I think all of us have really said how he just doesn't seem like the same person, even just after the snap. It seems like he never wants to take that step forward, make his reads, throw the ball downfield. He's always rolling out, out of the pocket to kind of, I feel like, save himself, run for his life, and then start looking for his options. I think that maybe the collarbone from last season against the Bears, and then him having difficulties into the playoffs, I think that may be something that's on his mind, especially because earlier in the season he had a knee thing that was going on. I do think that this season was full of worry for him when it comes to injuries and what this team will be able to do with him later on into the season and into the playoffs.
Mike Lauro checking in. Who's going to be the OC? Your thoughts? You're late to the show, Mike. We just went through about 6 coordinators. So get the replay, check it out then, and then we'll go from there. But we had a couple good guys coming in there. Thank you, as always, for listening. Noom's checking in. My best man is head of operations for the San Cleto covered lacrosse for them. Total clown. No one is going on the record with this guy. I normally would say that, but the Wentz article was right, and that's the only reason why we're discussing it. So, Eagles, ton of drama. Go ahead.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day. That's all I got to say on that one.
Which it's been how many years? 4 years since I've even heard his name. So, and you were right, Joe. There was no coincidence that he dropped that on the same day on purpose. But if you are looking to get a beer, I got the spot for you. Dolan's. Well, that's the banner. That's not the ad. Where are we at? Dolan's Bar, baby. Right in Delco, 24 East Sellers Ave, Ridley Park, PA. Go to dolansbar.com. There's Quizzo, music, great times, memorabilia giveaway. You never know who's going to be there. I feel like you always see a former Eagle, former Flyer, former Philly. Probably maybe there'll be a former Sixer in there one time. Go down to Dolan's Bar, eat the wings, great beers, great food, great time. Let's move this into the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid just keeps getting better. He has not had a game this year under 20 points. He's not had one game where he scored under 20 points. I feel like it's just a given he's going to get 30 every night. He's on a 30-point streak for, I don't even know what the streak is at this point. He went about 17 games with 35 and 10. And Monday night? Yeah, Monday night.
Yeah.
He breaks the franchise single season record, 70 points in a game, passes Wilt Chamberlain. A lot of people are probably going to say, whoa, I thought Wilt scored 100. That was under the Warriors with the Philadelphia Warriors, who are now the Golden State Warriors. So for the Sixers, franchise record, 70 points, just an absolute amazing game. He had 59 points at the end of the third quarter. The Sixers had the game in hand as well. He even came out and sat about 6 minutes in the fourth quarter and then comes in and plays and gets to 70. If he had played the whole fourth quarter, he could have taken Kobe's 81, probably handily, probably beat that on the obviously anniversary night. Joel Embiid just keeps it's remarkable what we're seeing. Al, how are you feeling about the process, Joel Embiid?
I don't know. Is he the process anymore? I think when Nick Nurse came in,
I'm correct you right now. He is the process. And
I know.
First thing Maxey said to him in the locker room, process, and they went. Ah!
I know, but like it's a different feel because his team is different, and give Nick Nurse and all that for the culture shock. Mike said it. Nick Nurse made a hell of a difference. But he unlocked what we couldn't There was a lot of locks to unlock, but there was that last one, and it seemed like Nick Nurse could do it. So, agreed, Fred. Like it feels like if he gets 30 points a night, that's like a slow night for him. Like, I scored 30 points. I took the night off. He could have easily got that 81 or broke it. I think too. And also on top of it, I think what made it even funnier is that Karl Anthony Towns and Minnesota was trying to. They're scoreboard watching and trying to overdo it. Like, well, we can get them more. And then I think he scored like 62, 64 points. 61. And they still lost. And the coach went off. I don't know if you guys saw I
didn't know they lost that game.
There was a video and I saw some quotes from the coach, just like this is unacceptable. Like if you play this style of basketball, this is what happens. So, people are going to try to duplicate, but it's not easy. I mean, you saw like who might be the future big man one time going up against him, and it's funny. I mean, tell me the part where Joel Embiid walks by him, looks at a guy 4 inches taller or 3 inches taller than him, whatever it is, and he just like how often does this guy look up at somebody? But he just ceases to amaze you, and the Spurs are not a great team, but they're not a terrible team where you're going to score 70 points easily on them. And listen, even terrible teams scoring 70 points isn't easy. So it's just scary that this guy is so big yet so good. Like it's magical watching him sometimes. I use the term magical.
And he's doing it with his mid-range game. If you look at the list of players that scored 70 plus, Kobe had 8 threes. I forget the other guys. It was like 6 threes, 5 threes. It was in the 60s. Durant's another one. I think he had 60 something at one point. Even Towns, who had 62 that night, he had 1 3, guys. 1. All the rest were 2s and free throws. And he's the last person since Michael Jordan in 1990 to have 65 plus points in a game, 15 plus rebounds, and 5 plus assists. And the only player in NFL history to have 70, 15, and 5 ever. No one else has ever done it. So not only did he score, he rebounded the ball, and those 5 assists were pretty sweet. Joe, is this season on the ilk of a Michael Jordan?
It's got to be. It absolutely has to be. We haven't seen this type of dominance out of. I'll just keep it to the Sixers. We haven't seen this type of dominance out of a Sixers player ever. Joel Embiid is the best 76er I have ever watched in my life, and there's no doubt about it. And I understand that's saying a lot because in our adolescence, it was all Allen Iverson. 2001 final, the stretch of Iverson. I have to put Joel Embiid over Allen Iverson, at least for my own my fandom of in watching. My wife was one of the people who said, "Oh, well, I thought Wilt had 100." So shout out to her being wrong. I also said to her, "Can you believe Joel Embiid is doing this as a mid-range shooter? I mean, he's not shooting the threes. He's not sitting at the top of the key. He's being in the paint more often. Of course, the free throws are coming. I mean, this is something that I don't think a majority of people have seen, like this type of dominance game in, game out. He had 24 and 6 in the first quarter, 34 and 10 at half, and he finished with 70, 18, 59% from the field. This is unprecedented. And I mean, this is a game that kind of we were all looking for because it was him going up against Wemby, somebody who is in the league that is actually taller than Joel Embiid. So I mean, all around, I mean, the game was great. The performance by Joel was, I mean, in a word, historic. I mean, what can you say about this guy other than he's the best? And there's a real chance that he's not going to be eligible to be the MVP this season. And I said this the other day in a post, like there's going to be an asterisk this year. This is year one of the NBA and their dumbass rule of if you play less than 65 games, you're not eligible to be the MVP. And in year one, it's going to come back to bite them in the ass because everybody will know who the true MVP of the league is if Embiid, because of load management, plays 64 games. But with that said, it all matters what happens in the playoffs. Back-to-back scoring champion, last year's MVP. The one thing he needs now is the championship. So for him, and I'm sure this is kind of the way it's going, he doesn't care about the MVP anymore. He doesn't care about playing under 65 games. It's all about being healthy, getting over that hump, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, getting to the finals, winning that championship. Joel Embiid, the best Sixer we've ever seen.
He is the best Sixer I've ever seen. I agree. And we didn't see Dr. J play, so I guess some people will yell that. We didn't see Wilt Chamberlain play, and we never will. And it's different eras. It's hard to compare, but I agree with you, Joe. He's the greatest 76er I've ever seen play, and I think he's often taken for granted. This guy is averaging 1.05 points per minute. So every minute he's averaging 1 point. That's the most ever in NBA history. It's the most in 40 years, the most average points per game in a 16-game span in 40 years. Again, ahead of Michael Jordan. This is like Michael Jordan stuff. He leads the league in made 2-point jumpers. He's 7 feet tall. He's shooting 47% on twos and threes, best in the NBA. And here's the kicker. He ranks top 5 in defense. Yeah. He's top 5 defender. He does it all. Joel Embiid, and he's in his prime right now. It took it. I think we often forget that this guy did not play a normal childhood of ball. Like when he came into the league, he had just played the game 3 years at Kansas. Like he is just now starting to get to a point that a college kid starts to get comfortable with the game. You know, he's played his whole life. Then he plays high school. Then he goes to college and plays. He's just now getting to that level of years of basketball. So the sky's the limit. Let me change this then. Knowing what we know now, and one of the things he said after was the focus is a championship. He was excited about the accolades, but the old Joel would have talked about being the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. He would talk about that other stuff, and it would always annoy me and validate some of these people that criticized him. He went right to, but we know it doesn't mean anything unless we win the big one. Are the Sixers built to win the big one as is? And who scares you in the other conferences, if anyone? I'll start with you, Al.
Yeah, no, I not sounding like a homer. Yeah, I think they could go as is, barring any injuries to any other key players. I know like Rocco hasn't played, and it looks like it's gonna be another 4 weeks or so before he gets in. But I don't think they need to make a move. If they make a move, I think it just increases their chances as long as it doesn't upset the balance. But to answer the other question, who scares? I mean, who scares me in the Western Conference? I'm just looking now. Just to be honest with you, nobody. I mean, the Thunder's just out of the blue, crazy. Like they're the top in the West right now, and but like I know the Clippers are playing better, and everybody's all on them right now. But give that time. I mean, the Nuggets are playing them again, and we saw that matchup already, and that was just another amazing game he had recently. He can handle them. Like KD and the Suns don't do anything for me. And they did the Mavericks, nothing. I mean, the Lakers, look where they're sitting at, and then they'll somehow climb up the charts just to make the playoffs a little bit more interesting because that's what the NBA wants. But I'm just saying, I don't see anybody in this Western Conference that scares me. If the Sixers make it to the championship, I believe that's it. I believe they will win it.
Joe, does anyone scare you in the East?
The only team I would have said up until yesterday would be the Bucks. And that's not the case anymore because now Glenn Doc Rivers, for whatever reason, we don't even know exactly why, is their newest appointed head coach. So, I mean, we have, years and years of footage that we know of what Doc brought to the table. I understand the Bucks are still good. They have a really great record, only 13 losses. Still don't know why they fired their coach yesterday. But but we see what coaching does to a team. We've seen what Doc has done to this team, for years prior to right now. Nick Nurse comes in, and this team looks completely different, completely ready to go out there and compete. And one of the things I love about this team is they don't take their foot off the gas. They are from opening whistle to all zeros in the fourth quarter, ready to play hard for each other, their coach, and the fan base. And if they were to stand pat, at the trade deadline, I would still feel comfortable going forward. They don't need an all-star. They need a role player, a shooter here or there. And you have to think when Melton comes back, when Roku comes back, these are going to be added pieces to the roster. So it's almost like they're adding to their bench, from within once they get back from injury. Like, no, I there's no one in the East that scares me. There's a rumor that Marcus Smart can get traded here. Of course, that would be nice for defense. But again, that's a role player, even though he's a bigger type of name. Al, you were bringing up the West. The West does not scare me at all. You see KD in post-game pressers when they're telling him what Embiid did, and he's like laughing because he was like 70 points. Shit, like he couldn't believe it. Like these guys, they fear Joel Embiid around the league. Paul George out there on the West with the Clippers saying, you can't stop them. You can only try to contain them. They will be scared when it comes playoff time, whether it's in the East or it's in the finals against the West. Joel Embiid and the 76ers team, they got this league's number this year.
I have to say, there's teams I fear, but I don't.
You're wrong.
They're all beatable. And one of them, Nooms is bringing them here, is the only team that scares me is a team coached by Spo, motivated by Jimmy Buckets. It could very well take out that we face the Miami Heat in the first round, and that could be a problem. They could find a way. But I to your point, Nick Nurse he just makes me feel so much more comfortable that we're going to find a way. If we were able to beat the Heat without Nick Nurse, I think we'll be able to do it. They're a little older now. They just got Terry Rozier. They moved on from Kyle Lowry. And to your point about the Bucks, hilarious that we're going to probably match up with Doc in the second round, and he'll coach circles around him. And Nick Nurse will coach circles around the Celtics in Missoula. I'd be a fool to say the Celtics completely don't scare me, but I agree with you guys to the point they're a little overrated. Like, I don't think they're as scary as everyone makes them out to be. And I just think the Sixers might make a move here subtly, go get a Malcolm Brogdon here, Marcus Smart. That's another interesting one, but keep the core. I think it's more about being a team over in the West. The Denver Nuggets would definitely concern me in an NBA Finals matchup. They got a good coach and they got the pedigree. They've won 7 games. I think the league deserves a center versus center NBA Finals. We deserve to see Jokic versus Embiid, like back in the day, Elijah Wan versus Shaq. Let's get that back going again, and I think the league deserves to see that. But are there teams that can beat the Sixers 100%? But is there a team that I'm like, oh man, no shot here? We beat the Thunder, we could beat the T-Wolves, we could beat the Clippers, we could beat the Suns. Like that dream team, that super team stuff is done. And core teams that play together win, I think, now in this league.
Yeah, and there are some names that when a trade is talked about, like my question to you guys is, and I'll kind of answer it first, like you see Marcus Morris's name come up, you see DeAnthony Melton's name come up, you see KJ Martin's name come up. Like KJ Martin, he's an expiring contract, he's a free agent after the season. Okay, I understand that. Marcus Morris, he's a Philly boy, just got a key to the city, and I think he's been playing very well with the minutes he's been given. I do not want to move him. DeAnthony Melton is one of the best defenders in the game, and he's got a shot, and there's no way I would move on from him. Who out of this roster would you guys be comfortable moving on from?
I have a trade for you right off the top of my head, and it works mathematically. I've ran it through the NBA trade machine a couple times.
Okay.
It's funny you say that. Korkmaz, if you put a deal with Korkmaz, KJ Martin, Robert Covington, and I forget the fourth. There's a fourth in here. Jeez. It's not Marcus Morris. It's not part of the core. House. I think House.
Oh, yeah, okay,
House. Yeah. And you send all the second-round picks. I'd even consider throwing a 1 in there for Malcolm Brogdon. You would then retain Malcolm Brogdon. You would now have 2 open roster spots as well. And then you could go sign on a buyout, maybe Kyle Lowry, who seems like he's washed. And he's not eligible to sign with any of the other teams because of the weird NBA rules with the cap apron. So it's not like he can go to any of the other contending teams. We're it. Another guy that is sitting around still living in Philly, Danny Green. You could bring Danny Green and Kyle Lowry back. You would open up roster spots, be in the buyout market, and then you would move on from players that, in my opinion, are irrelevant to the team's success right now. Rocco, I know, it's a great story. Also, Embiid did that in front of Brett Brown. Forgot to mention that. Not to get off topic. Yeah. Rocco made me remember it. It was good at that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But these are guys you can move on from, and then the Portland would then get picks, which they want, and then expiring contracts.
I sound like you did Daryl Morey's job for him there, Fred.
I did. I did. I honestly think and you guys, to a lot of people that are fans of all 4 sports, that literally, like hockey, I couldn't do it. But I think basketball and football, maybe not baseball. And I think, Joe, you might be better with baseball, you and Al. But football and basketball, I no doubt, and this is going to sound arrogant as hell, I think I could sit in a general manager thing and make the right trades and do the right deals. My only issue would be the relationships with agents and me just being some like, dude, no one knows. That would be the only issue. But trade-wise, I think I could be just like Howie and just like what's his name? I can't. Morey. Well, I'm already hiring myself. I forgot his name already. But let's before we move, let's move on to the Flyers here. We're getting to the end of the show. Who one of their players might have some legal trouble, but I got a legal guy for him. And that guy is David Archerry, Esquire. Call now, 610-565-0300. Workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury law, criminal law, www.cherryinjurylaw.com. Give him a call today. And that player I was referencing is Carter Hart. We're not going to get that
setup to that ad read was top notch. That was so perfect. How you started it with the legal troubles of Carter Hart, and then you threw it back into the defense ad. And now we're bringing it back to Carter Hart.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
I guess I can retire now. Fred, you are now doing all the ads.
But Carter Hart, I don't want to get too into it. It is speculation, but it has been not confirmed. But 5 players that took leave of absences from the from the NHL back on the 2018 Youth Hockey League, had some legal issues that I don't want to thoroughly speak on, but. Carter. Bottom line for the Flyers is Carter Hart is now out. Whoever the victim, we feel for the victim. We're not going to get into it, but the Flyers have dropped 3. They're now without a goaltender. They brought up Cal Peterson now. Are we coming back down to earth, boys? Did everyone start paying attention to the Flyers? The sold out Wells Fargo Center. They get worked 2 games in a row at home, and then the third against Tampa. Are we coming back to earth, Al? Can I not? I was ready for the playoffs, guys.
Nah, I mean, listen, even the Flyers can go on a skid. It's not like they lost, like the Senators on a great team, but they lost to the Avs and the Bolts, who are 2 good teams. And I think this might have kind of shaken things up a little bit for them. I mean, you knew the locker room knew something was coming down with the whole Carter Hart situation. So I think they can right the ship again. I don't think this is coming back down to earth, because that implies they're not a good team, and we were bamboozled by a stretch of good games. But I mean, it's almost February. They won a 3-game losing streak. I mean, I'm not really ready to sit there and say they came back down to earth. I'm saying that they're on a losing streak, but they gotta right the ship.
Let's hope the Flyers gauntlet doesn't have the same effect some tough teams we had to play. And we fared well previous that. We had some tough games before that. We fared well. Maybe they ran out of gas. Got some injuries as well. The All-Star break couldn't come quicker. I think we're a few games away from that as well. Joe, how are you? Are you fired up still, or are we like, maybe we should sell some guys and then continue fully with the rebuild?
No, I am full on still fired up. I think that they've had some crap luck as of late, starting with the Cutter thing. However, I mean, Jamie Drysdale had a goal last night. I mean, he seems like he's really coming into his own with the big club, with the major club. So Owen Tippin with lower body injury, you saw him, come off the ice the other night. You knew that kind of something was going to come out about that. And then the Carter Hart thing. And, every time that we talk, at least every time I feel like I've talked about Carter Hart this season, I mean, he's missed a lot. He's missed a lot of games with whatever, whether it's personal injury, whatever it may be. He's missed a lot. And Samuel Ersson, I've talked about Carter Hart, I have to bring up Samuel Ersson and how we've been waiting for Carter Hart to be our franchise goalie, our one. And here we are, lucky enough to have a 1A and a 1B. And it was kind of interchangeable to who exactly was the A and B. And I'll tell you right now, the Flyers are so lucky that they have Samuel Ersson right now, because if all this was going down with Carter Hart and they were playing how they were, and now they're sitting here with, a schmuck of a goalie, that would be the season. So with everything has been said and done, I am still fired up. Samuel Ersson is the guy. He might be the future of the Flyers right now, because, again, not going into the legal stuff of Carter Hart, we don't know exactly what's going down. I'm not even going to get into that. But they're very lucky to where they are, and I don't think I know the losses were bad. The losses were bad. They were giving up a lot of goals. And guess who was in goal for at least the start of the skid? Carter Hart. But you saw the Flyers fight back in every single one of those games. And a majority of those losses came down to like one goal. And then they pull the goalie, empty net goal. And then you see kind of the score doesn't do justice to the game.
Yeah. And
so, go ahead.
And let me remind you guys, I mean, from December 29th to January 4th, they went on a 4-game losing streak. And from there, they won in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. They won 6 of those games. And now they were on a 3-game losing streak. So, again, this coming down to earth situation, this isn't the first 3-game losing skid they had. And like I said, 2 to 3 game teams are really good teams. You got the Bolts, you got the Avs. This stuff's going to happen. They got the Red Wings coming up, and they also have Boston coming up. So,
and I will say this. I think hockey, when it comes to a 2, 3, 4 game skid, whatever it is, a little bit of a slump, I think it's different when it comes to other sports, because other sports are so focused on the loss column and games back and stuff like that. Hockey is on a point system. You could earn 2 points from a win or 1 point from a shutout, and with a loss, you don't lose anything. You know what I mean? Like the Rangers were above the Flyers. Like, if the Rangers lose a game.
They did lose a few. So
that's what I'm saying. Like it's not that detrimental to the Flyers because the Rangers aren't earning points as well. Like it's just you have to get back to the right side of the win-loss column.
And next up, they got the Red Wings at home or in Detroit tomorrow night, and they close up Saturday at home against the Big Brad 1 seed Bruins. So we'll see how that pans up. We'll watch some All-Star game, let them rest up, and then they open up February 6th. Panthers, Jets, Kraken, Coyotes. But
yeah, some tough sledding there. There's more tough sledding there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but
I mean, and also one more thing, also pertinent perspective, they're still in second place, and they're only 4 or 5 games behind the Rangers right now, losing 3 games in a row. So let that kind of make you feel a little better. 4 seed.
But let's move into the Philadelphia Phillies, who we have some news, and just want to. A guy I've been critical of, but I certainly appreciate his time here. I am so glad he got to have the moment he had in 2022 with our Philadelphia Phillies. But Rhys Hoskins has moved on to the Milwaukee Brewers, 2-year deal in the area of $39 million, I believe. 34 million. We could not pay that, in my opinion, as Philadelphia Phillies, especially with our current roster. But thank you, Rhys, for everything. Initial thoughts. Are we sad to see him? We're all sad, I would say. But would you have liked them to keep him around? I'll start with you, Joe.
No, I think the writing was on the wall. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, World Series, I was blaming on him for his defensive liabilities. And then, he gets hurt in spring training, and here we are all like boo-hooing that Rhys isn't going to be on the squad. And to be honest with you, it was a blessing in disguise because now Bryce Harper is at first base. So, I mean, I think when you think of all of that, you have to just know that it was time and that they were going to move on from Rhys Hoskins and to what you guys were saying with the contract, 2 years, $34 million, but there's a buyout or an option after the first year. So they can move on if he's not, if he's not playing well enough, he's not coming back good enough from the injury, the ACL tear. I love Rhys Hoskins. I do. And one of the things I love about him is like everything he did off the field. There's a guy that me and Al grew up with, Chris Carroll, who is now, in a wheelchair, and he knows and has been a part of all the foundation. I think it's an MS foundation from Rhys and his wife, Jamie, and our buddy, Chris Carroll, has been a, kind of a focal point for Rhys and his wife and their foundation. And I know every year when he has his charity events, Chris is right there at the forefront. I see pictures all the time of them hanging out. Chris actually went on his social medias today and put out a long, big thank you, love you, miss you to Rhys Hoskins. So it wasn't only what he did for us and the bat spike and the big moments and everything. It wasn't only that we got to enjoy what he brought to us on the field, but it was the stuff off the field that meant a lot to everybody as well.
It was not a lot unlike Burrow, except he didn't get a parade with Elvis the dog. Yeah, I agree. We had to watch Burrow move on, but you're right. It is similar that we couldn't keep him. Would like to keep him, but it just didn't work out. Al, goodbye to Rhys. Initial thoughts.
Yeah, like Joe said, there was that extra connection. He was a great guy. He was a Philly. I mean, at one point we thought Rhys was going to be one of the centerpieces that they built around it. But things change. The world changes. It outgrows you. There would be nowhere to put him. Even if he would come back and play for free, where would you put him? You going to play him off the bench? I mean, let's be honest for you. Like, that would be the only spot for maybe out in left field occasionally.
You need a left fielder, yeah.
Yeah, dude, he was terrible in left field.
I know, but yes, my point is, it's not a place you would want to be. He would have to be DH, but we have somebody for the DH. We have somebody to play first base. We don't want him in. Yeah, the fit wasn't there anymore. Things changed. It just evolved, and unfortunately, the plans did not pertain to Rhys Hoskins. And I love Rhys Hoskins. That sounds like Tobias Harris, but it just didn't work out. And I know a lot of people, and I was one of those people who were getting annoyed with his fumbles and at first base that at times did cost us big moments in big games. So that's not why I'm happy to see him gone, but at the same time, I'm glad he's going to go somewhere else where he can play and it works out best for him. And he'd be a guy who gets a standing ovation when he comes back for the first time.
And you know what? In the past 24 hours, Milwaukee got Doc Rivers and Rhys Hoskins.
Oh yeah, they're taking all our sloppy seconds.
And
speaking of seconds, Doc Rivers will be out in the second round.
And he will return to the bank on June 3rd. So get out there to give him his standing O for that weekend. Yeah. June 3rd. Nice.
See if I got tickets to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's that? A Monday? It's a Monday.
I don't know.
How do you know that?
I'll tell you.
How do you know that?
Delco Day. That's probably why you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's planning for that. But there was also a signing. The Phillies with their first, a significant move, a reserve relief pitcher. They signed Colby Allard, who in 4 seasons with the Rangers from 19 to 22, Allard has a 5.85 ERA in 62 games and 34 starts. He was the 14th overall pick by the Atlanta Braves in the 2015 MLB draft, was traded to the Rangers for Chris Martin in July of 2019. He was then traded back to Atlanta in November for Jake Oradeza and cash. So, Joe, any new you know about this guy? I have no clue who this guy is.
If I'm being totally honest, no. Anything that I know is what I've read since yesterday when they signed him. It's a depth piece, I guess. I do know that he has 1 or 2 more minor league destinations. So I know that they have control of him, whether he's up in the majors, down in the minors, and after this season. So I think that played a big part in it, just to see if they can get anything going with this, and they have control of him. He doesn't have to be on the main roster. I think that this is the type of move that the Phillies are looking for right now. I mean, if we're really being honest with you, I mean, the market has been completely stagnant, and I mean, outside of Yamamoto, I think Hader just signed with somebody. And of course, Ohtani, like it hasn't. Yeah. There hasn't been like a whole lot of, anything within MLB free agency. So even though the Phillies made a signing, it's nothing to write home about. And I think that there may be another move or two, larger on the way.
Yeah, they definitely, Dombrowski, all reports say he does want to make a move, but I like that he's not going to make a stupid move either.
Yeah, me too.
Anything on Allard, Al?
No. I'm not going to sit there and pretend I know who he was. Listen, he's they're bringing him in the camp kind of guy. This is what they're doing with him. They're stocking the pond for the camp. He might not even sniff the majors this year unless they're in dire need, or he just resurges and has a good spring training. We'll find out. But yeah, I think Dombrowski's going to make some moves. It's just there's not going to be anything splashy. This is like they already have a lot of splashy moves and they re-signed Nola. I mean, that's your splashy. That's probably going to be your biggest move for the rest of the season. It's just
longest tenured Philly now too.
Yeah, and here's my thing is, I said this at the end of this season. I hope they bring in guys that aren't heavy hitters anymore. I want guys who are just contact hitters, guys who are going to get the ball in the play, and they got to get back to kind of little small ball, balance it out, kind of like we were talking about with the Eagles. Like there has to be a balance somewhere. And we saw it. We kind of lived by the long ball, and we died by the long ball in the playoffs. So I'm hoping they bring some guys in that don't have to be heavy hitters, just guys that are contact, tried and true, good quality hitters for above average. You know what I mean?
Agreed. And we are 20-some days away from pitchers and catchers reporting, so that'll be exciting. And I'm excited for some Phillies baseball, but
yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but Phillies and catchers are on Valentine's Day. And my wife has some decorations up and around the house. I was jokingly said to her the other day. I goes, yeah, and she said something about like February 14th. I was like, I know, pitchers and catchers. And she looked at me. She looked at me and she's like, you know what? You're right. She was like, all right, that's why the decorations are up, pitchers and catchers.
I'm I'll be honest. I was online today and during my lunch break, and I did pull up the flights to Tampa, Florida, to get to Clearwater. It's because it's only 20 minutes away. So I'm like, maybe I could go take it a game because it's you can get $150 or $200 round trip through some airlines to get back and forth from Tampa. I'm like, maybe I'll go.
Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. Please hit that like button, smash that subscribe. Ryan Swobes, I see your comments coming in there. We talked Eagles earlier in the show. Please watch the replay. We touched on all that stuff you were commenting on. I appreciate your support. Al, one more thing.
One more thing, a little house cleaning here, guys. Remember, check out EoP. But one thing I want to point out, we'll be having great live coverage of the Royal Rumble. Speaking of Tampa, that's right. Our boy Joey Wood over at the Steel Steps on EoP Friday nights at 10 o'clock, as well as writes all the articles for our wrestling coverage. He's a credentialed reporter with the WWE now, so he will be down there in Tampa covering it for EoP. So look to our social media for some shorts with some interviews, as well as articles and other videos and other things coming out. So check it out.
Dude, I just watched some clip of Ric Flair winning the Royal Rumble a few years ago. I don't even know when it was, but yeah, Royal Rumble.
He was in Tampa when the Eagles played Tampa.
He's a clown actually, but EoP everywhere. Now we're with the Royal Rumble. Amazing. But again, thank you everyone for listening. Please hit that subscribe, share us out, that like button too, comment. We love reading your comments on the show. That's a wrap. I'm Freddie Burns.
I'm Big Al.
And I didn't mess it up. I'm Joe Sheeran.
We will see you next week, 8:30 Wednesday nights on EoP.